Hey everybody. Batman, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Power Rangers are three pillars on which my childhood was founded. Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers would eventually cross over in 1998 with Power Rangers in space when they met with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Next Mutation. It wasn't until 2015 that Batman and the Ninja Turtles would meet in a crossover of DC Comics and IDW Comics, eventually crossing over and them having a whole sort of collection of them sort of versus each other, working with each other. Now in 2019, we are getting the animated version of that comic with Batman versus the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I could not be more pumped. This movie sees the Turtles making their way to Gotham City to stop Shredder from spreading mutagen with the help of Ra's al Ghul. Eventually they fight Batman and then team up with him to help stop them from spreading said mutagen. And to be honest, I was pretty surprised when this trailer dropped way back a couple of months ago when they sort of announced that this combination would be happening in animated form. I was actually pleasantly surprised because it actually looked good. Something I totally didn't expect because these two franchises, other than that crossover comic, essentially had nothing in common. But I do have to say one of my favorite things about this movie was actually the character design and the way that it sort of crossed over different things from both publications' histories. For example, Batman himself kind of sports his Silver Age 1960s classic sort of comic look, whereas Batgirl and Robin sort of sport their modern look. As for the Ninja Turtles, it's a little bit different. They're kind of a mishmash of various things that have happened throughout their history. For me, it was more of a combination of like the 2003 series, the 2012 Nickelodeon series, mixed with some movie influences here and there. But overall, the overall look of the Turtles were actually pretty badass and something kind of different, but also familiar that we've kind of seen before, which is I think why it was so appealing. And speaking of mishmashing and crossing things over, this film does a lot of that with the various story elements that are happening here. With Ra's al Ghul and Shredder sort of teaming up, Batman's entire rogues gallery, or the majority of his rogues gallery, shows up in this film in some way, shape, or form. And they are in fact affected by the TCRI mutagen, eventually mutating them essentially into some sort of animal creature. Some of them were kind of hit and miss here and there. Harley Quinn sort of like it's a dog creature. I didn't really like a whole lot. Bane was like a cheetah something, I think. Jaguar, maybe, which was kind of confusing, but some actually did make sense, like Mr. Freeze as a polar bear was actually really cool. Joker as a snake kind of made sense, but he kind of had like a snout, so that was a little bit weird. And speaking of combinations and mashups, this film does a lot of that in terms of the story, with Shredder and Ra's al Ghul sort of meeting in the middle to kind of create this TCRI mutagen monsters, and Batman's almost in his entire rogue gallery show out for this movie, which I thought was really cool. A lot of them are affected by the mutagen, including Bane, Harley Quinn, Joker, Mr. Freeze, Scarecrow I think is also in there. There's a couple of other ones, but it was really actually interesting, and some of them were actually visually very cool. Joker as a snake kind of made sense, but he had this weird sort of snout thing. Mr. Freeze is a polar bear I liked actually a lot. I think that was my favorite one. The rest of them were sort of hit or miss. Scarecrow literally turns into a crow, which I feel like was a little bit on the nose. Harley Quinn was a dog, which I guess in terms of her loyalty to the Joker makes sense, but in terms of anything else, just seemed a little bit weird. Bane was like this cheetah thing, and Poison Ivy eventually became a plant who was rooted, and people just sort of walked around her, which I thought was a kind of a funny joke. But the way that they kind of mishmashed the two franchises, again, that have nothing in common essentially, was actually very interesting. I liked the way that they sort of went for it, and even eventually set up a sequel down the line. Something that was definitely awesome about this movie, however, was the fight scenes. They were some pretty awesome action scenes and fight scenes overall. One of the best matchups, which I was kind of surprised at, was Shredder versus Batman. Actually, there are a couple of these fights throughout the film, actually probably about 2, maybe 3-ish, that happen. And they're actually go toe-to-toe and have one has advantage over the other, back and forth, and they actually do a pretty good job at showing the two fighting each other. They seem very much in line with their fighting styles, with Shredder sort of having that old school ninja style, Batman sort of having any ninja style essentially, because he's kind of a brawler, does a various fighting styles. In terms of the Ninja Turtles, they have a couple of fights against the Rogues Gallery, which I thought was pretty cool. One of the best moments that I thought during a fight, though, was Bane sort of as his sort of mutagen self trying to take on Donatello and Batgirl. He eventually tries to break the bat, essentially, but with Donatello, but he completely fails at that thanks to Donatello's shell. I thought that was kind of a clever nod to the breaking of the bat, but also kind of a failure because he's a Ninja Turtle and has a rock-hard shell. Overall, this adventure of Batman and TMNT was actually felt like a fresh take on both franchises, and in a way, they worked when they were combined together, which I was kind of concerned at when this first was announced. But it's definitely worth a watch if you're a fan of one or both of these franchises. I definitely recommend checking it out. And also be sure to watch the credits because there are some great pieces of art as sort of like these variant covers of various TMNT and Batman crossovers throughout the end credits that are actually really, really cool. I really liked a lot of the things that they thought of and sort of created for these crossover comics that were very cool. And again, there's after the credits sort of thing, which very much sets up a sequel. So if we see a Batman versus Ninja Turtles 2 down the line, I would not be surprised. And now on to Batman Hush. A recent trailer for the upcoming animated film Batman Hush has been released, which is based off the 2002-2003 Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee epic comic that is super badass and has amazing artwork. If you haven't checked it out, definitely do that before watching this movie. But it actually is the story of Batman sort of having this new villain, which is something that we don't really see very often. We very much tend to stick with the rogues gallery throughout Batman's history. But he has a new villain. This one's kind of interesting and different. But I like this story a lot because it combines a lot of his rogues gallery to sort of take him down, and along with his Bat family, Nightwing, Robin, Batgirl, sort of take him down. And we get a lot of those cameos throughout the movie, or comic rather, as well as with Superman and a couple of other people, which is actually very cool. A lot of different takes on characters we haven't seen before. So how they're going to translate that to the animated version, that will definitely be interesting, considering that one of the main plot points is very apparent and obvious very early on in the comic. I hope they're able to correct this in the animated movie and kind of save that suspense for the end, or that big reveal rather for the end, but only time will tell when this comes out. It's slated to come out later in 2019, probably after summer, fall-ish is when I would guess it would come out. But either way, I'm really excited to check it out to see how Jim Lee's artwork translates into this and this new animated style. It's very clean in this animated though, so I'm a little bit concerned about that. I wish it was a little bit more gritty, but hopefully the story will really shine through when this film gets released. And although I'm really excited about Hush, there are plenty of other Batman stories I would really like to see. I know the Court of Owls was sort of touched on briefly in like a Batman versus Robin story. I wish they would really go back and do the entire Court of Owls. I think that would be really cool. I think like The Long Halloween, which I think may be in development as well, I'm not 100% sure, would be really interesting. Injustice Gods Among Us, I've always been a fan of. Like the comic, it goes really deep into a lot of different areas. I think that would have to be an entire anthology though, or like series. It couldn't be just one movie. There's a lot to cover in that. Another great one is Earth 1 Batman. I really, really liked Earth 1 Batman, which is still an ongoing story, so hopefully maybe even something like that could be developed. But those are the stories that I would like to see. But if you've seen Batman vs. Ninja Turtles, if you've seen the Batman Hush trailer, or if you think of any other Batman comics or comics in general that you would like to see into an animated or live action form, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below. But other than that, that's all I have for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.